Dwayne, no.
Okay. Welcome back to the From the Fabricator podcast. My name is Max Perlstein. I appreciate you coming back in for another edition, a special bonus edition featuring Matt Kamper of Woodbridge Glass and Kyle Lindersmith of Burkle, USA, Burkle, America. We're talking a bunch of things, but a little focus on BEC and GPAD. We'll talk about that in a second. But thank you for joining me. It's a good one, folks. It's a good one. This podcast is brought to you by myglassclass.com and its new offshoot, myglassfab.com. Check them out online. Myglassclass.com will kind of get you into everything 24/7, 365 training. So if you're looking for training, you're looking for education, that is it. More than 100 courses, and it's developed by the NGA with the industry's involvement. You want to check that out and take advantage of online on-demand training at myglassclass.com. We put together this podcast because we've got the Building Envelope Contractors Conference, BEC, and GPAD, Glass Processing and Automation Days, coming up in March in Nashville. Registration's still open on both of them. Hotels are filling up, so you might need to hustle to get those hotels. That is starting March 3rd. The night of March 3rd is the first reception for BEC, and BEC runs on Monday and Tuesday. GPAD picks up on Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday. Check them out at glass.org. Hit the events tab, and you can see the agendas on both. You want to sign up. And when you listen to Matt and you listen to Kyle, I think you'll get fired up and want to be there if you have not signed up already. And if you have any questions, reach out to me and I'll talk to you about both of them. Glad to. So enough of me talking. We're going to kick it off with Matt Kamper, who's fantastic. We cover a ton of different things, lots of name drops of really good people in this industry, both past and present. So we'll go with Matt, then we'll go with Kyle, and then I'll see you on the other side. Okay. So special edition of the podcast focusing on things like BEC and GPAD. And to kick it off, this is a look at BEC, but it's also a look at a great man in our industry, somebody I'm a huge fan of, Matt Kamper, Director of Pre-Construction, Woodbridge Glass. You can find that company online at woodbridgeglass.com. Matt, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Max, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This is awesome for me. You're a guy that I've watched just explode onto the scene and just give so much to the industry. And I look forward to, getting into the details and all the things you did. But the one thing I don't know about you is I don't know anything really about your past. I don't know, where you grew up, where you went to school, things like that, and how you got into this crazy industry. So take us back. Where did Matt Kamper, start to exist, and how did you get to today?
Well, going from industry to industry, John Heineman. I was a teacher. I was a microbiologist. Back to where I was born. So I was born in Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Born in a small family.
Okay.
Lived in Michigan until I was about 8 years old, and we moved to California.
Okay.
And so I grew up the rest of my life there in California. And my dad actually was an estimator for an HVAC company. So he was in the industry, but obviously I'm in glass, but he was in HVAC. So I was always around all the technical books and Carrier and McQuay and Train, and he was always going over to conferences, and I'd hear his conference calls. So I was always tangentially related to the trades and construction, but I wasn't in it. My original goal was actually become a college professor. So I actually went through and went to UC Riverside, and then went to the University of Arizona, did a master's in environmental science, went back to UC Riverside, started my doctorate. At the same time I was doing my doctorate, I was teaching at this specific university as an adjunct doing night classes, and I was working in LA as a microbiologist for LA County Sanitation District. So I was doing that. I was working on my PhD, did 3.5 years of that, and then ended up not completing that due to a number of other things that had to do with funding. And we extended our funding 5 more years. And so they said, hey, you've got 5 more years to do this. And my response was, I don't know that I want an 8-year PhD, but thank you.
Wow.
So I ended up teaching. I went to high school, and I actually left the program and was teaching. APU didn't hire me full time, so then I started teaching at Redlands High School in the science department. I then transferred to Mission Viejo and taught at Mission Viejo High School. Ended up getting married, having our first child. And so while I was doing all of that, actually got into the industry in 2007 from John Heineman. And so while I was teaching, I didn't want to teach summer school. And John Heineman, his son Tom was president. Anthony Callis was a friend, and Anthony said, hey, we have an open position while we're searching for a recruiter. to replace this person. Can you come in and just estimate for the summer? So instead of taking 10 weeks and doing nothing, why don't you come work for us? And in that 10 weeks, just absolutely fell in love with the industry. John was such a generous man just to bring me in, and Tom and Anthony really investing in me and teaching me the ropes of the industry. And so that was 2007, and I've been in the industry since.
Yeah, a lot to unpack. So, real quick, where in Michigan were you born? Because I live in Michigan. I never knew you were born in Michigan.
From Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay, so west side of the state, beautiful, beautiful spot. The teacher thing makes sense because you're organized. I've been on so many conference calls with you, and now it makes sense. It's all clicked for me when you said you're a teacher because you always set us straight as a group. As we're all kind of mixing and matching. Of course, you were a teacher. The microbiologist didn't see that coming. Did not see that coming.
Yep.
So that's amazing. John Heineman, legend in the industry, obviously, very, very cool background there. My gosh. Okay. So I'm already learning, and so you've been in the industry since 2007. It feels like you've been longer, but I mean, time does fly. That's still a long time. You've been in it for a while. That's pretty
Coming
cool.
up, coming up on 17
Seven,
years. It'll be tax day. I'll be 17 years.
17 years. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So you're at Woodbridge Glass, and I'm curious on everything you guys do because I've seen the work that you do, just kind of like, when you've talked about certain project profiles and so on. But what exactly does Woodbridge Glass do, and who do you serve?
So Woodbridge Glass it's actually two companies. So Jeff and Steve Siciliani own the company, and there's the Warner Systems Incorporated, which is the fabrication, assemble, and glaze and engineering side. And then there's Woodbridge Glass, which is the C17 glazing installation side. So I'm actually working on the Woodbridge side of it. So the C17. So the pre-construction is all typical commercial sales, new construction, renovations, infrastructure, hospitals. We do airports, a lot of high-rise residential. And then the other half of the company is Warner does our assemble glaze and fabrication for us, but Warner also works and supports other glazing companies outside of California. So
Nice.
Woodbridge is exclusively in California from San Diego to Sacramento, but Warner will fab, assemble, glaze anybody else's systems, including their own. We have our own systems, and then they will do panel work, stainless steel. We are an LA City certified fabricator, so we do our own mild steel and embeds and things of that nature. So it's really two companies in one, but my side is the Woodbridge, and it's the pre-construction for selling the jobs, design, build, delegate design, design assist projects.
Perfect, perfect. And so let's talk projects because I've seen some of them on the website, woodbridgeglass.com. I've heard you talk. I'm really curious because I know this is a tough question now. Your favorite project of all time and why. And I know for a lot of people, it's like trying to say which were your favorite kid, or if you have multiple dogs, what's your favorite dog, sort of thing. And so I know it's hard to pick, but I'm curious for you because you go deeper than the norm to me. You always think things through a little bit differently. Again, it's the teacher thing. So now it all clicked. I feel like my whole day is made that I found out you're a teacher at one time. What's your favorite project of all time and why? Just curious.
So it's funny you mentioned that because the prototypical project for me, which was really the culmination of the first X number of years of my learning and then the application of it, was a project called Columbia Square. It's
Okay.
a 21-story residential in Hollywood, California. It was with Kilroy Realty. We worked with several of the architects. So I spent 6 months on the design team, taking it from 50% SDs all the way through 100% CDs. And then we had the contract for construction to do design build. But it was really where I made mistakes, but I learned a lot because it was my first project in 2016 of sitting with architects and deeply going through every week, multiple Zoom meetings, one in person. And that's really where I cut my teeth applying the knowledge I had acquired and been taught. And then the teacher side of it, which was organization, because I had to keep the glazing package moving in the right direction. And the complexity of the project is that we had 4 different facets and facades, different angles. We had window wall, we had curtain wall, we had canopies, we had railings, we had metal panel, and you've got 4 different colors of spandrel. You have all the thermal and the Title 24. And so it's really where I learned a lot. And thankfully that design team was very gracious to me because they knew that, I had the talent to do it, but I needed the skill and the experience. And so it's really a great project for me because everything had to come together. And in those 6 months, it really was the application. And going back to teaching, one of the things about teaching is if you can teach someone that concept or that thought, or you can mentor someone, you really have to understand it in order to break it down and build it up for that person to learn it and master it. And so it really forced me to rely upon others and ask a lot of questions and eat some humble pie. There's some things I was like, oh, what? Did not know that's how that worked for you. but it really set the groundwork and the foundation. And it was right about that same time that I got more involved in NGA. And so it was perfect timing to segue from really having that deep understanding in the trenches of taking that project all the way into construction, and then being able to join with the NGA team and start with the BEC. I was the technical director. Chuck Knickerbocker brought me in. And so it really was a great segue for me into NGA, and then seeing, oh, this is the other application of it. It's that legacy side. It's that this is a huge world and amazing industry that we have that I got to be part of. But it thankfully came on the heels of me really having my eyes open from architects and engineers and other mechanical subs saying, hey, this is how this all has to work. And so it was a great experience. So Columbia Square for me was a great project because it was kind of that launching point for me that I really understood a lot more and the depth of what we do and why we do it.
Love it. Love it. That's fantastic. I like that. It's a great thought, great answer. We're going to cover a bunch of things, including the NGA aspect and BEC. With Matt Kamper, Director of Pre-Construction, Woodbridge Glass. Check them out online, woodbridgeglass.com. We're going to cover all of that momentarily, but I want to mix it up. And this one, it's a fun question. I ask a fun question to all the guests. Quote or statement that you live by and why? Is there something that you've got on the wall, or is there something that you always have to say to yourself, or something that you always just look to? What's a quote or statement that that you live by?
So I would say the one that I live by probably is do right because it's right.
I like it. I like it.
And you have to do right in our industry. We all know that our name carries a lot more weight than our actions, and our actions determine that. And so for me, I always tell myself and others, look, if it's the right thing to do, the right thing to do. And so I was teaching my daughter to drive, and I actually stopped in an empty Target parking lot at every one of the stop signs. She's like, Dad, there's no police. It's at night. What are you doing? And I said, honey, the right thing to do is to stop at the stop signs.
Right.
It doesn't matter if anybody else is watching. You do right because it's right. And so for me, in the industry, we do right for our customers, for those that look to us as leaders, just for our own colleagues. We all bear the name. And so for me, doing right because it's right. And then the thing that I just heard recently, in fact, in the last week, was do the thing. Doing the thing is doing the thing.
Ooh, okay.
And so kind of unpacking that is, planning to do the thing isn't doing the thing.
Right.
Telling people you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing.
Right.
Doing
right.
the thing is doing the thing. And so it's kind of that addition for me that kind of made me really think, okay, doing right is one thing, but doing right is
right.
what really matters. And so hopefully I didn't convolute things,
nope.
but that for me is you got to do the thing because it's the thing to do. And that's what we have to execute in our industry. We've got to be accurate, right? Do it right once. Can't leak, it can't break, it can't hurt anybody. And so that's part of what I love about the industry is the intricacies and the need to be right. But yet look what we build, these amazing structures. And we just have our industry just amazes me. Every time I look at a new project or the glass awards, like we're going to see at BEC, and just what we as a group can accomplish, it just blows me away.
Yeah, me too, and that's good. Do right because it's right, and then I like the fact that you have to do the thing to do the thing, and you're right about that, because how many times do you and I hear in various conversations up and down the chain of okay, yeah, I'll be doing that, I'll take care of that, I'll look into it and get back to you, sort of thing, but you got to get it done, and it has to be done. So it's a good point. I like it. All right. Well, speaking of doing right because it's right, one of the things that you've done was you've gotten heavily involved in the NGA, National Glass Association. NGA, sponsors this podcast. I appreciate that. I'm very involved in NGA. You've had an incredible impact on our world in a relatively short time, because, you started in the industry in 2007. You learned about NGA, which I know you're going to talk about, but you got heavily involved in it. What was that initial impetus, though, to find your way to NGA? And then step in and really go to the deep end like you did?
Well, I mean, I have to thank Chuck Knickerbocker. He's
Great guy.
been in the industry for so long, fantastic, great supporter of NGA. He spent, I think, 9 years as a technical director for the BEC. And so that was under Ghana. And so when it was GANA before NGA and the two merged.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chuck actually, I worked obviously with him, and he was a vendor at TGP. And so I got to know him, and he actually invited me to join. He saw just the passion, because I was always asking questions. I was always eager to learn. I wouldn't just ask for a quote. I'd say, hey, can you explain to me how this goes together? What am I asking for? How do I install it? How do the parts and pieces come? How do things actually get shipped? And I think he saw that and said, hey, you would really gain a lot from joining this committee and joining this subcommittee and joining Ghana. And so for 2 years, I really was mentored by him as he was involved in that. And then as the merge started to happen, and then just he mentioned my name to Irmela, and then Irmela approached me and said, hey, we want to create this new committee called the Installing Committee. Would you be interested in chairing it? And of course, I jumped at the opportunity because it was representing the glazing community. It was having impact on, and at that point, Jenny Chase and NGA and the team, they were really focused on putting together myglassclass.com.
Right.
And so they were on the forefront of all of these educational materials. And of course, with my background, having taught in the School of Education at APU and having worked as a teacher, of course, I jumped at that opportunity to help look at the curriculum and have impact on that and suggestions and how things might be structured. And trust me, Jenny needed very little from me. The NGA staff is absolutely amazing. Just the way that they put things together and the resources and the minds that are in that organization. I just felt privileged to be part of that. And so that's really how I got deep into it, was the installing committee, but the draw was the education, the My Glass Class website. And from there, it really transitioned then into a lot of our manuals. And now obviously there's a lot of things which we'll finish talking about of what's coming up and that NGA is going to be producing for the industry to use, a lot of manual and updates. But that's what drew me in, was that education component, the technical component, and just the opportunity to really speak to the glazing community, because you've got in the supply chain, you have manufacturers, you have fabricators, and so the glazers were really, I mean, I think at that time we maybe had 700 or 800 glazers involved. I think we're over 2,000 companies now in NGA. So just looking at that growth and the representation and the impact that they can have, it just really excited me, and it made me impassioned to be joining.
It's incredible, and you're a great story for somebody who comes in, learns, and goes from there. And now the fact, again, I'm so hung up on the fact you were a teacher. It all makes so much sense. I feel like I feel like I'm like we found DB Cooper. I mean, it's like a miracle here. I mean, it all makes sense that you were a teacher because of just the way you handled yourself, and of course you're involved in myglassclass.com because you're a teacher. And so it all works. So with BEC and with the installing committee and everything else, I mean, there's probably a ton of things that you could look back at, because I know you've had this nice little run. Is there one particular thing or two particular things you're most proud of what you've accomplished over these last several years?
I think from an accomplishment standpoint is just being able to lend a voice of the application side of it, because you have amazing technical expertise when it comes to the suppliers and their engineering departments, and you have these very complex systems that have to come together. And yet if we're not able to understand how a glazer buys it, installs it, contracts it, if we don't understand how it applies, because at the end of the day, and maybe this is the wrong way to say it, but I think the glazers write the check for everybody else, right? We buy the supply, we buy the product, we install the product. And so I think a lot of that is the culmination of, we have to take all those expertise and bring them together. And so I'd say the accomplishment would be part of the My Glass class, because you have this bringing together of all this technical knowledge, and you have all these experts who are willing to join the subcommittees, and at every level. I mean, you've got everybody from Michael at Goldray all the way. I mean, you got all these people who are willing to give of their expertise and multi-generation expertise. Aragon, and they're joining our committees, and the two young men are just phenomenal, and they're just giving of themselves. I mean, they've got little kids at home, and yet they are passionately giving to the industry. And so for me, I'm most proud of being able to be part of, I think, developing a net to capture the opportunities and specifically the application side of all that knowledge, and then purvey it through the installing committee, through the BEC, and through a different productions and publications, so that we can all benefit from it.
No, that's great. That's great. And just with the names that you mentioned, Matt and Joey Aragon, tremendous people. Michael Soroka from Goldray, amazing. And of course, Chuck Knickerbocker. I worked closely with him, and my time there and his time there overlapped, and just again, it makes sense that he would connect with you. And he's an evangelist when it comes to this industry. And sometimes Chuck says things that not everybody agrees with, but he's passionate and he believes in it. And it goes back to do right because it is right. Chuck, I think works off of that too. So good call by you. And I love your comment about the glazer. And to me, the glazer is the straw that stirs the drink. I mean, without the glazer, we're a bunch of ingredients, and it's kind of, kind of clumpy. The straw is what brings it all together and makes it all perfect, and that's the glazer, and that's where I have so much, appreciation for you and what you do, and then everybody in that field. It just means so much. So, let's talk a little bit though. If you're a glazer and you're not volunteering yet, because I have a lot of glazers that listen to this podcast, have probably thought about, NGA, thought about maybe coming to BEC, maybe have come to BEC and just don't give it a second thought about volunteering. What would you tell them to get them over the hump?
Right. Well, can I kind of take a step maybe to the
Go
side and
for it.
talk about Russ Ebide for a
Please,
second?
please. I will. I
So
love talking about Russ Ebide. So go for it, please.
So I was about 9 months in the industry, and John Heineman graciously took me to BEC in 2008. And I got the privilege to sit with a guy named Russell. And I didn't know who he was. I had no clue. I sit down at this table with John Heineman and Russell, and we're sitting there, and I think Chris was there too from Guardian. And I just sat with him. And so to answer your question, to get someone over the hump is the fact that the industry is so supportive at every level. You can make a phone call to any level, whether it's supplier, manufacturer, fabricator, other glazers. You can call the trade committees. You've got local regional trade like Southern California Glass Management Association. You have Texas. You have all these regionals. And so to me, to say to a glazer, look, Russ Ebide, who was 40 years in the industry, an icon, was running Guardian. His parents were immigrants, came with sandals on their feet, and that's it. And he worked from maintenance all the way to become president of Guardian. You have opportunity in this industry. You are limited only by your own hard work, ambition, integrity. You will get help along the way. You have joined a family, and I would almost say it's foolish not to join the family, because you have the support, opportunity, the legacy, and you're going to make the income. I mean, none of
Yeah.
us are in this to not make money, but we all do, and we do a great job, and a great job together, and everybody's successful. So that's how I would give him the hump is, look, here's the icon of a company of this industry that I didn't know who he was. He wasn't offended. He offered his phone to me. Hey, if you want to call and ask, anything you need, call and ask me. And I'm 9 months in. I didn't know what a clear story window was, and I'm going, okay. So just that just typifies to me what we have and who we are.
And that is that's amazing. You're 9 months in, and you're sitting with people like John Heineman, Russ Ebide, Chris Dolan, all just titans of this industry, and that's really really cool. That you got that experience, and it doesn't surprise me with Russ. I went to him, in between gigs, when I had some issues. He graciously welcomed me into his office, gave me time. I mean, this is a guy who's running a $6.6 billion company, and I mean, he gave me the time, gave me unbelievable advice, which worked out beautifully, and has made a difference in my life. And so it's great. I love that you had that connection too, and it stuck with you. And then again, yeah, I think if people put into the volunteering, the networking, and the aspect that you just talked about, that comes back, and it makes, for a better career, better company, better products, better everything. So it's a good take by you. All right, let's talk BEC. I know you're busy. I got Matt Kamper, Director of Pre-Construction, Woodbridge Glass. Find them online, woodbridgeglass.com, but you could also find him at BEC, which is coming up March 3rd, 4th, 5th. The night of the 3rd is our big, gigantic reception that everybody attends. You can find more information on that on glass.org. Look under the events tab and hit Building Envelope Contractors Conference, BEC, and sign up. It's in Nashville. It's great. And we've got a loaded agenda, and you can see people like Matt Kamper there. And so I got to ask you, Matt, you've been to now, I would assume at this point, getting close to double-digit BECs, if not more. What's how important is that to you personally, and how important is to the community at large?
Well, I think the simple answer is it's priceless, because to me, BEC is where you are going to network with other people who are leaders and have a leadership mindset. I mean, you are exposed to everything from new technology to economics to codes to you're inspired by a speaker every year of just, hey, you can go back and make a difference. And every year the speaker is just phenomenal. And I leave that Monday evening just going, you know what? I'm fired up. Let's go do right and be better, and let's go together. Let's and so for me, it's the networking with other leaders, it's the learning, it's the illumination of things you hadn't maybe thought of.
Yeah.
And it's really also it's real. We've been the last 2, 3 years, we have really tried to make BEC to have one of the panels be, hey, we're all in the trenches. This is the real deal. Pull the curtain back, right? The Wizards back there. We're all working. We all have some warts,
Yeah.
and we're going to have a PM panel, which is the final day on Tuesday, and we're going to talk about some tough questions, and it's going to be posing some mistakes, and how do we fix them, and how do you look out for these things. So to me, the value of BEC is priceless, because you're networking with the experts and the leaders and people who have a passion and they have an ownership mindset. Whether you are a 9-month guy like me or a Russ, you have that ownership mindset and the leadership mindset to go and learn, and you get out what you put in. And if you put the time in and you focus, and you turn your phone off for 2 days, you're going to come out of that a better, different, and more effective leader in person.
You said that well. Said that well. I'm curious. You have a favorite session or favorite memory of BEC over the years? Something that stands out for you?
I think for me, one of the favorites is really just the way that everybody comes for the speaker, the inspirational speaker. And I know it's not really content related, but it's because we spend so much time on content. It's nice to step back and be kind of given that inspiration of, hey, it's still about people. It's still about growth. It's still about being the best you can be wherever you are, whether you're pushing a broom or running the company. And so for me, one of the favorite memories, I think really would just be from the rookie,
Jim Morris. Yeah,
yep,
Jim
Jim
Morris.
Morris, just his message, just his look. You're never too late.
Yep.
He went with the dream. He was a family man, had dad bod solid, and he made it. And it's to me, that was just very inspirational, because it showed that anybody and everybody can make it, and you do have what it takes, but you got to put the work in, and you got to take a chance, you got to take a risk. And I think the BEC and NG, I think it is a big risk. I mean, our industry, everything we do is managing risk, and it's risky. And embracing that and excelling at that and relying upon a network. And I think BEC really gives an opportunity to meet the kind of team players that you want to join.
No doubt, no doubt, and I'm with you. And it's funny because there's in these last two questions that you answered, you got my mind racing. I find it fascinating when we have sessions where people do talk about the mistakes or the pratfalls, or they admit in front of the group that our backlog is empty, at a certain point, and we're looking for work. That takes a lot of guts. That takes a lot of guts to stand in front of a room of 800 people, and say some of these things and show those warts. But that's how we all get better too, because like the segment that Henry Taylor of Con Air hosted last year, which I believe was one of your ideas, was taking a look at these common, what is wrong with this picture, and everybody in the room saying, I know what it is, and I had that problem, and I went through that, and this is how we fix it. That sort of stuff makes a difference. And I think you got. I'm so fired up for this event, as you can tell, and I know you are too. But you got me going on it. I think it's really exciting. You're dead on about what you can do by stepping away for a couple days and networking and thinking things through.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head too. Is the magic is it's okay to be real. So often we try to put up that face, or we put up that front, or we're frenemies and we're competing for jobs. This is a place you come, and it's like Switzerland. It's neutral. Hey, we all have it. We're all dealing with it. We all change diapers. Let's talk. And you can hear the conversation after a talk or a technological board panel meeting. You can walk out and listen as people are outside having a cup of coffee, and they're discussing the very things, and they're just bonding, and they're sharing, and they're like, hey, what about this? And then you have a vendor come up and go, hey, we solved it this way over here in Cincinnati. And you're like, well, I'm in LA. Oh, okay, great. Here's my card. It's amazing how the magic happens when we can just be real. And BEC it's about being real.
And it's funny because it actually, caused us a little bit of frustration last year, because some of the sessions were so good, including the one that you had your hand in a lot of these, but people would come out into the hall and they would get into these deep conversations, and we couldn't get them back in the hall for the next presentations, because they were like, okay, I had this and I was going through this and this is what I did. And we're like, hey guys, we've got the keynote coming up here in a second. They're like, yeah, we'll get to it, because they were so into it. And it's like a, it was great on one level and frustrating on the other, but you want that. That's at the end of the day, you want people communicating, and that's what we had. So, and we're excited. It's coming up in March. It's BEC. See people like Matt Kamper. The agenda is loaded this year. We've got keynotes from, Ricardo Meist from Vitro, Troy Johnson from Harman, Tom Jackson from Steel Encounters. I mean, we've got robotics, we've got AI, we've got that project manager panel, which is going to be fantastic, and codes and so on. So everything's there, and we hope to have you there. And I know I've held you up here for a good half hour, Matt Kamper, and I appreciate it. He's from Woodbridge Glass, director of pre-construction. See them at woodbridgeglass.com. Can't let you get away without asking my common question of every guest, and that's how you're seeing the rest of 2024 and into 2025. Are you a survive till 25 guy? Are you guys doing okay? What are you seeing in your crystal ball there at Woodbridge Glass?
Well, I think for me, whether you have backlog or not, you have to thrive. You have to grow. And so for me, I see that things are tightening. I do think that margins are going to get slimmer. I do think that you're going to have the watering hole and it start to dry up some. You're going to have stiffer competition. But that just means you have to be better.
Yeah.
You've got to be sharper. You've got to be more accurate. You have to do your craft better. And so for me, yeah, I think 24, 25, I think it is going to be tightening. I think it is going to be more difficult. I see a lot of shopping and not a lot of purchasing. So I do see that. However, for us, at least at Woodbridge, we're really focused on the growth. We're looking at our processes, our procedures. We're tightening up some of the things that maybe got a little loose around the edges. You can't drift as much when you've got to be tight. And so our manufacturing, we realigned some of our fabrication. We moved some machines around. We tried to streamline some of those items so that we had better throughput. So it's an opportunity. I think not only is there, yes, there's a little bit of the ugly side of the industry. It's not going to be as strong and robust as it was, but on the good side of it is it's an opportunity for us with a little less on our plate to do better what we can when we have it.
No doubt, no doubt. And it's funny that you said about the a lot of shopping, not as much purchasing, because if you do look at the things like the Architectural Billings Index, the inquiries are still pretty good. The work on the boards has been lagging, and we knew it would be lagging. It is interesting that the inquiries are there, so there is still an interest. It's just now, converting, trying to get that over the hump, and with interest rates, in flux, it makes it a little tougher. And why I was really curious what you're going to say is because a lot of things do start in California and come east. So if you're starting to see it, that means the rest of us in east of we're going to see it. So this is good. Thank you. So are you pumped for BEC? I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah. Matt Kamper, you are the man. This is great. Director of Pre-Construction, Woodbridge Glass, woodbridgeglass.com. Thank you so much for doing the podcast, my friend. You gave me a ton and more, and I love just getting to chat with you. So this was a great honor for me. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Max. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with you and what you do for the industry. I mean, just to end, I mean, you look at and you shared, and I want to finish with this if you don't mind. You share that your brother kind of got the mechanical side of things when you looked at your family business. But what you brought that galvanizing personality, and you had a vision of how to unite so many different parts of our industry through your podcast, through your volunteerism, just through your passion for bringing us together. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for this podcast. Thank you for being part of BEC and what you do at NGA. And I mean, it's we all serve our part in the cog in the wheel, and I thank you for yours. Thanks for all that you do.
Well, I appreciate that. Those are incredible words. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And we're going to keep trucking. That's all we can do. This is what we all love to do. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll see you in a few. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay. Switching now the gears to GPAD, the glass processing and automation days. And one of the stars from GPAD 2 years ago was Kyle Lindersmith of Burkle America. He's their CTO, or your vice president. Your title changes a little bit over there. You can find them online at www.burkle.tech/US-EN. You can just look up Burkle America too. They're great on the search engine. Kyle, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Happy to be here.
So we'll talk about GPAD in a second. I've had you on before because I find your product fascinating. I find you fascinating. You're a good guy. So before we get into GPAD and we get into laminating, There's some folks out there that don't know you, haven't met you. A little bit about you and your past. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from? And how'd you make it into the wild and wonderful glass industry?
So long story short, was born in Columbia, Missouri. Kind of moved around a bunch when I was a kid with my dad. Was a 3M brat, so he kind of bounced around to some different facilities. Texas, ended up in South Dakota in Brookings. Graduated high school there. Ran around for a few years installing car stereos professionally. What seemed kind of cool at the time, but wasn't a big future in that for me. So decided to go back to school and just went for a 2-year associates, and it was called robotics at the time. Got out of that, went to work for a company called Hutchinson Technology, and they bought some equipment from this company called Burkle. And it was my job to go visit a site and implement and install some equipment on that Burkle that the machine did not come with. And so I was hired as basically a technician at this Hutch Tech out of school. Met the service manager from Burkle. One thing leads to another. We're having a little interview over dinner and beers, and was on a plane the next week out to California for an interview, and that was 1997, I guess.
Wow.
So February was 26 years with the company. A few years into my run, I moved from the technician to the service manager. Did that for a couple of decades. In 2022, got into sales at Burkle. I'm sorry, 2021, and then vice president, just kind of overseeing our glass, our solar, our plastic card, and our circuit board product lines. And then recently, they've asked me to be CTO, just so I can also be over all things technical, not so much guide the company in a technical direction as a traditional CTO, but just trying to make sure everything from the service department to parts and sales and everything is kind of working the way they want it to.
It's a heck of a run. And I did not know, when we talked before, I did not know you were born in Missouri. Did not know that you went to high school in South Dakota. So fascinating. So Burkle, let's talk Burkle. Again, is Burkle, a very wide-ranging company based in Germany, but specifically on the glass side, there's two items. One that they're definitely known for on the laminated, and then they have something else. But talk about Burkle and what their focus is specifically on the glass world.
So Burkle in the glass world, we mainly started off with coating, whether it's an anti-reflective coating. There's some fenestration stuff out there. We weren't huge in that, but that's a market we're looking at getting into, because we do manufacture probably the world's best roller coaters out there from a longevity quality standpoint. But we've spent a lot of time in the solar industry on my side of the business, when you talk about glass, applying different coatings. But the mainstay certainly is the IFL and lamination. This was born from a machine that we were using in the solar industry. It was more of a membrane laminator, and we retooled it, redesigned it to get rid of that membrane and actually use a steel platen. So the whole idea was to create a machine that can process lami much faster than an autoclave. So, we're talking tack times between 14 and 15 minutes. You'll get a bed load of roughly 100 square feet of glass every 15 minutes. That cycle time can lower a little bit, but that's our main focus on the glass side, is the IFL and lamination. And so far, it's been a good run. I think we've done a good job of market penetration. Not everybody knows what it is, but I think a lot of folks have either heard of Burkle or the IFL by now.
Absolutely. And that's, we're going to talk about GPAD, where you'll introduce and talk more about laminating in the IFL. But the interesting thing about the inline laminating is, like, for the layman, it's like a tempering oven style for laminated glass. It's flat and it looks like a tempering oven, on first blush too.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like tempering, and you're playing Tetris. We're working with the software suppliers to, up and cutting, to optimize our bed loads, to make sure that we're 80% and above, just so we're not wasting any dead space inside of the machine. But exactly, put as much glass in this darn thing as you can, and the bigger the loads, the more output per day, right?
Yeah, and so I guess the curiosity question I have is this industry has always been autoclave, and yeah, there's been the quote unquote pizza oven style, and then there's been the poured resins and some other aspects. But How's it gone for you trying to introduce something, so, for the lack of a better term, revolutionary as the IFL, into a market that's so used to an autoclave?
I wouldn't say it's been difficult. I've just been in the glass industry for a couple of years now, and I gotta be honest with you, I feel it's very welcoming. It's a good group of folks. Honestly, I think everybody is all ears, quite frankly. They want to hear what this thing is. It may not be a fit for everybody, but there's a lot of curiosity there. This last glass build, the last glass build was again just absolutely crazy. The booth was mobbed. There was no time for lunch. There was sore throat, get a water here where I can. And there were three of us in the booth, right? So it was a busy show. The prior year was dead. I think it's location maybe, but year prior to that was quite busy. So last year was good. As far as introducing it, yeah, certainly, getting somebody to pull the trigger on the machine, to put it on their floor, take it that far, that's a far cry from following up from glass build, providing a presentation. But for me, it's just, we're still kind of in the educational phase, just getting everybody understanding what this machine is, how it works, how it's going to benefit you, the cost savings associated with it. Hey, we've got a couple of flagships out there, right? OPGT down in Venice, and then the joint partnership with Corning for the diamond glass. And we got another order for that machine. Our friends by Winco up in Pennsylvania absolutely love their machine. I got away from the clave and went to inline processing. So, with these references, it's been a huge help. Winco is a great group of folks, family-owned business, and welcoming always. So we've had Cardinal in there. We've had many different tours coming to see the equipment, and that's really been great that they've allowed us to showcase not only their facility, but our equipment inside of their facility. So to answer your question, has it equaled into sales yet? We're still working on it, but everybody's been very welcoming. Everybody wants to understand what it is. And I think it's just, another tool in their belt, right? Now that they understand what it is, if they want to get into Lamy, it's going to be a clave or it's going to be a Burkle. And I want to have the market awareness, the brand awareness. When they say Burkle, people know what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's getting there. And the Winco people are as classy as can be, good folks, and obviously PGT is a major player, and so it's exciting stuff. I'm with Kyle Lindersmith, CTO at Burkle America. Find them online. Look up Burkle America or burkle.tech/US-EN for the English version, and all the good stuff on the Burkle is online. And you will have a chance to see Kyle and talk to Kyle if you come to GPAD. And so that's Glass Processing and Automation Days. That's the beginning of March in Nashville. And this is a special podcast, promoting that right now and talking about that. So we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit of GPAD. And 2 years ago, you spoke and you had the room kind of in the palm of your hand. And it was really, really impressive. What were your overall thoughts, though, about the event 2 years ago? I know it was, at the beginning, it was like you're standing up there staring at everybody, but then you just knocked it out of the ballpark. What were your thoughts of the event?
It was good. For me, as it was a bit nerve-wracking. I wasn't supposed to give the presentation. Our sales manager from Germany got COVID a couple of days before the trip, and so I had to rearrange the presentation and sit in front of the TV for hours, and then at the end of the day, I got up there and forgot it all and just kind of winged it. It just worked best for me. But it was really good. For me, networking at any of the events is always helpful. Even the conferences, you get out for some beers with the guys afterwards. That's always great, guys and gals. But the event itself, for me was great, right? I think that Burkle had put together a really great presentation with 3D renderings and automation and videos, and just was able to allow me to explain how the machine worked in detail. I thought at first, my God, how am I going to ever fill up 30 minutes? And I'm watching the clock and I'm like, man, I've only got 3 minutes to go and I'm not even 70% done, right? So I had to wrap it up. But, like you said, I was nervous as heck. I didn't sure how it was going to be received, but everybody was clapping. They seemed to be very engaged and interested in the presentation. I had a line of people at my table afterwards, wanting to chat. So yeah, I walked out feeling great, walked in feeling pretty nervous, but it ended up being a real success for us. Almost closed a deal with Glassworks in LA, but the price increases from a couple of our friends in the industries kiboshed that deal. But they were so excited about it. We're talking in the hallway, at GPAD. So it was a great experience for me, and I'm looking forward to this year too.
And if you winged it, congrats, because nobody would have known that you were winging it. It came across great. And so again, glass processing and automation days in Nashville at the beginning of March. You can go to glass.org, hit the events tab. You can learn more, learn about Kyle speaking and other people speaking. And so this year, a little bit of a different approach, at GPAD. You're going to speak, and kind of talk about, if somebody wants to either get into laminating or they want to advance what they already have. So talk a little bit about what your thoughts are on planning for this year.
Yeah, so Sarah and the team approached me at Glass Build and just mentioned, hey, we want to have a change to the format and have it not quite be so dry and infomercial-y, if that's a word. So my idea was to maybe bring a potential, a customer, a partner, somebody up on stage with me and just bounce some questions off each other's heads about, why did you buy the autoclave? You've got one. Tell me, or you're interested in one. Tell me what interests you in the machine, rather than hearing from me, where I've obviously got a vested interest in selling these machines, of course. It'd be great to hear from someone who's either planning on purchasing one, or someone who has one. What have been the advantages for you? What's it done for you? So, and I think Sarah and the team was excited about that. Definitely a much different format than we've ever had in the past at GPAD. So hopefully we get a good guest. Hopefully it goes well, and hopefully it's educational for those that are thinking about getting into LAMI.
I fully expect it. So it's going to be really exciting, really exciting. So that's GPAD coming up in March, Nashville. Find more on glass.org. I'm talking to Kyle Lindersmith of Burkle, America. Wrapping up with you. One last question. You travel the world because obviously, Burkle being in Germany, you run in a lot of different worlds because you're in solar, you're in the coding side, you're on the tech side, you're on the service side, you're on the sales side. I'm really curious what you're seeing and feeling about the current economy of things, forecast in 2024, 2025. How are you feeling about the market out there?
For Burkle North America here, for us, we're pretty flat. I think we're going to have a decent year for 2024 and 2025, but we aren't projecting any, major orders or any major bubbles in any of the industries. We were really excited about solar for quite a while there with the passage of the IRA. I think every other day there was some multi-gigawatt announcement, and we're thinking about how in the world can we make more of these machines every year to keep up with the demand. But due to Chinese dumping and just market conditions, that whole situation has changed drastically. And as a result of that, we're going to be focusing much more on the IFL. Of course, we only have so many marketing resources, marketing dollars, and I'm happy and sad to see some of that shifting from the PV side over to the IFL. But I think we definitely see at the moment a lot more opportunities in the glass industry with the IFL than we do in any of our other industries. So I'm over our plastic card side. So the credit cards in your wallet have been through one of our laminators. We do circuit boards, solar and glass. And there are all those industries, from what I see, circuit board is picking up. The CHIPS Act trickles down to our friends in the circuit board industry because they got to make the boards that the chips go on. So we definitely see some pickup in that industry. Plastic card is always strong as ever, although everybody says, hey, you're going to pay for everything on your phone. Everybody still wants to have that credit card in their wallet as a backup. Again, PV is going to be a much different ball game. Our management in Germany is leaning on us here in the US just because they see a softening of markets in Asia and a softening of markets in Europe as well. So they're really putting a lot of focus on the North American operation and going to be pushing hard for orders. So IFL is the top of that list. We've got some other legacy equipment out there, of course, that we're always chasing with existing and potential customers. But the IFL it's new. The glass industry is relatively new to us. I think, you guys always talk about, code changes and, needing more LAMI. I mean, who knows? It's going to be, your shower door, or it's going to be this, or it's going to be that, trying to get away from heat strengthened, tempered, whatever. There could be some massive opportunities in LAMI. And so we're really excited about it. We've got a customer down in Texas that came and did a tour with our friends at Viwenco, and he's getting into Lamy because he believes it's coming, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. No,
You
it's
know?
definitely from a forecasting standpoint, laminated is not going away. It's only going to grow and it's going to find more and more applications. And you didn't even mention the security and protective side is really, really on the cusp of going bonkers. I mean, even the forecasts are calling for it, which normally they're pretty tepid on those forecasts on things like public safety, and now it's not. They're really, really bullish. So I think you're sitting in a good place if you're in the middle of this laminated world like you are. So that's good stuff. Good stuff. Anything else to add, my friend?
I think that's probably it for the moment.
Okay.
I just mention on the podcast here if folks want to come and visit the table at GPAD, and just want everybody to know that if you're curious about the machine and you want to come visit Philly, about an hour outside of Philly, we're always open for a tour with our partners at Viwenco. Invite anybody to come out and take a look because it is quite an impressive machine. And that facility at Viwenco, everything is top of the line, everything is brand new. It's a brand new building. It is really a showcase.
Absolutely. One of these days I will have to do that myself. So very cool. Very
Absolutely.
cool. Well, I've been with Kyle Lindersmith, CTO, Burkle America. You can find them online at in Burkle America by Googling them, or look at burkle.tech/US-EN and see the IFL and all else. But see him in person at GPAD, Glass Processing and Automation Days, beginning of March, March 5th and 6th in Nashville, Tennessee. Go to glass.org to sign up. Kyle, thank you so much for doing this, and I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. That wraps things up. A wonderful interview with Kyle there. Good man. Before that, Matt Kamper from Woodbridge Glass. Kyle Lindersmith from Burkle, of course. So thank you to both gentlemen for taking the time. Talk BEC, talk GPAD, talk technology, talk trends, talk forecast, talk glazing, the straw that stirs the drinks, folks. It was good stuff on both podcasts. Again, this podcast is brought to you by myglassclass.com. Check that out at myglassclass.com. Online education 24/7, 365. Brought to you by the National Glass Association. If you need training, that's where it's at. You get your people trained, both the experienced ones that need a little extra, the newbies coming in. We got everything for you. And we have the new myglassfab.com for the Fabricator. So check that out. Of course, we hope to see you at BEC and GPAD at the beginning of March. Learn more about that at glass.org. And I got to get it in, always talk about television. And this one kind of makes sense. On Netflix, The Greatest Night in Pop, which talks about the We Are the World, the making of the song We Are the World back in 1984, 85, that time period with Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and Lionel Richie, and how they brought all these great stars together to record the song. It truly could never happen again. It's that rare of an occasion, rare of an occurrence. It will never ever happen again, something like that. Great documentary. It's funny, it's interesting, it's deep. It really brings it together, but also makes me think that's what BEC and GPAD are. We bring the best of our industry together every time to talk, to learn, to go further and and do good things. So, but check out The Greatest Night in Pop on Netflix. If you're from the mid '80s and you remember those folks, you need to see it. Cyndi Lauper's great in it. Huey Lewis, fantastic. So good stuff. Check that out on Netflix. The Greatest Night in Pop. Check out BEC and GPAD at glass.org. Check out myglassclass.com. And I will see you guys in a few weeks with another podcast from the Fabricator. Thank you so much.
Oh, the music is stopped.